I welcome you all to this MOOC on Professional Communication Skills, Module 5, Effective Communication, Office Meetings and Presentations. Today we will start with Lecture 5.2. The title of Lecture 5.2 is What Goes in the Presentations and Why? Developing a Story. I am Dr. Ranjit Kaur, Assistant Professor and former Head, Department of English from St. Xavier's College, Jaipur. I will be your instructor for this lecture. So, what is the module outline? First of all, we will discuss what should we include in the presentation. Then we will discuss what are the parts of presentation. And then what makes a good presentation and why good presentation is required. And fourth point is that we will discuss today is 3 key elements for a successful presentation. And fifth point is that how that storytelling technique is important for effective or important presentation. First of all, what should we include in the presentation? Just like other forms of any academic writing, a presentation can be divided into 3 parts. Number 1, an introduction. That is, in introduction, we will detail the purpose, the objective of our presentation, and also in the introduction, we will discuss about the structure of the presentation. शुरू में जब हम अपना इंट्रोडक्शन किसी भी प्रेजेंटेशन का शुरू करते हैं तो हम उसमें बताते हैं कि हमारा उसका एम या ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है और साथ में हमारे प्रेजेंटेशन का स्ट्रक्चर कैसे रहेगा. जैसे आपने देखा इससे पहले वाली स्लाइड में मैंने आपको 5 पॉइंट बताए कि मेरी पूरी इस प्रेजेंटेशन में, इस सेशन में हम किन बातों को डिस्कस करेंगे. The second important part of the presentation is a body. And always, whether the body of a letter is concerned or whether the body of presentation is concerned, it is covering the main points. And the last part of the presentation is conclusion, where we summarize, where we highlight the significance of the presentation, why we have prepared this presentation, what are the suggestions and recommendations of the presentation, and in this part we always or generally conclude what we have already discussed in the body of our presentation. Now we will discuss all these parts one by one, but first we will discuss how much percentage and how much concentration we have to give for every part. Number 1, for introduction is generally of 10 to 15% of our speaking time. Then the body is around 75%, and the conclusion is only of 10%. And in introduction, you tell them what you will tell them. It means what will be your presentation. In the body, you tell them, you discuss, and in conclusion, you tell them what you told them. This is a little bit tricky, but you can understood that only a single word tell will explain all 3 parts. Introduction में हम उन्हें ये बताएंगे कि हम उन्हें क्या बताने वाले. बॉडी में हम उन्हें वो बातें बताएंगे, वो पॉइंट्स सब बताएंगे. और कंक्लूजन में जो हम ऑलरेडी बता चुके हैं उसके बारे में कंक्लूड करेंगे नटशेल में, शॉर्ट में. अब हम एक एक पार्ट को डिस्कस करते हैं, उसमें हमें क्या इंक्लूड करना चाहिए. पहले the introduction of the presentation. As we all know, the first impression is the last impression. If our introduction of the presentation is impressive, attractive, and clearly briefing what we want to discuss, and this is considered to be the most essential part of our presentation because it generally sets the tone for the entire presentation. If you grab the attention of the audience in the beginning only, in the introductory aspect of your presentation, then your presentation will become a successful presentation. So सबसे important हिस्सा है ये आपकी presentation. And Second important point of the introduction is, if we want to capture the attention, this is that the first initial 15 to 30 seconds or maximum 1 minute that you can grab the attention of your audience. And those few words that you include in your introduction, that counts, that matters a lot. Second is that how we can make our introduction impressive one. So few styles that you can use to get your audience attention. Number one, either you initially ask a question, not a very complicated one or a difficult one, a very simple one, so that everybody is very attentive to answer that. Number two, you can share a fantastic fact or some startling statistics. That do you know that that has happened, this much percentage is there of this one. As I have shared in my presentation, that this much percentage is of introduction, this much percentage is of body. Like that you can do that. Another important way, or we can say that we can quote somebody, or we can share our personal story and connect our presentation to that, or we can show some complicated product so that there is some inquisitiveness is there, so that everybody wants to learn that what you want to convey in your body of your presentation. Or at times you can show some unusual objects if the topic is like that. So these are few suggestions that you can use to grab your audience attention in the very initial part of your presentation. Next is, you can also state a problem, that this is the problem and you will discuss this problem in your presentation. Or you can wear a mask or a costume so that everybody is attracted, what this person wants to convey to us today. Or you can sing, dance, or do a skit, a shorter one, some enactment or something. This is that. Or you can enter in a very unusual manner. Suppose everybody is supposed to thinking that you will stand in front and on podium and present your, or you just enter from the audience side only. Or you can demonstrate an action without speaking also, because as we all know, nonverbal communication is too much important while we are presenting our presentations. So you can do that. All these are important points and styles that you can use for your presentation introductory aspect. Second, and the most important part of your presentation is the body of your presentation. This is the central part of your presentation. And in this part, you generally explain your topic, and where all your information, facts, figures, data, opinions, suggestions, that you will include in this part. Then this body of your presentation is critical, because the audience needs to be able to follow that what you are saying or what you are presenting. So they are always looking forward for some important point, some important aspect to be discussed that you have introduced in your introduction. Another important point of the body of the presentation is that in body you have to inform your audience that what is being done, how it's being done, and why it's being done. So these in some or the other way, WH questions should be answered in your body of the presentation. And to answer these points, you should arrange your points in a logical and systematic order and give information accordingly. No matter how you organize your body of presentation, it's your individual choice, but you must have clear transitions from one point to other, or step by step it should be there. आप अपनी presentation को किसी तरीके से भी बना सकते हैं उसके body को, but आपको ये ध्यान रखना होगा कि वो एक sequence में, एक logical order में हो. Instead कि वो कुछ बातें unimportant ऊपर, important बाद में, एक उसका synchronization होना चाहिए आपकी presentation का. जिसको लोग फॉलो कर सके। जब हम कहानी सुनाते हैं तो उसकी बिगनिंग होती है, उसका मिडल होता है और उसका एंड होता है। ऐसे ही आपकी जो बॉडी ऑफ द प्रेजेंटेशन है उसमें what is being done and how it's being done and why it's being done should be in a logical and in a sequential order. Next important point that you should keep in mind is that use transitional words. What is the transition words? Such as next, then, finally, or I want to give some reason, first point, second point, third point, so that people will connect. And whatever information you are sharing on your presentation should be accurate and understandable. People will follow your presentation. That is important. And you need to offer enough information to cover that topic instead of that upper layered one only. Give them some important information, important points of that topic. And if you are thinking that some information is unnecessary or it's a repetition of something, please eliminate that. Please remove that information and add only that is required. So in the body of your presentation, आपको required information को logical order में एक sequence में शेयर करना है, ट्रांजिशन वर्ड्स को यूज करते जिससे कि बोरिंग ना लगे आपकी प्रेजेंटेशन. नाउ द नेक्स्ट पार्ट इज दैट द कंक्लूजन ऑफ द प्रेजेंटेशन. अब कंक्लूजन आपका बहुत शॉर्ट और कंसाइज होना चाहिए और आपके पॉइंट्स को समराइज करने वाला. So how you summarize your presentation? You have to highlight whatever main or important points that you have discussed in your presentation. Emphasize what the audience should have learned from your presentation. But do not restate everything that you have already said in the body of the presentation. सारा कुछ repeat करने की जरूरत नहीं है. कुछ bullet points, कुछ highlights को आपको अपने conclusion में repeat करना है. Next आपको एक बात ध्यान रखनी है that you have to not to introduce new information in the conclusion part. Whatever information you want to include new, that you have to include in the body of the presentation, but not in the conclusion. Conclusion is a summary of your presentation and it should be short and concise, clear also. Generally, a good conclusion ties together all the parts of your presentation. So include some sort of link to your introduction. Avoid false or multiple endings. एक बार कुछ बोल दिया, एक बार कुछ बोल दिया, कुछ गलत बोल दिया, ऐसा नहीं करना है. Try to use some catchy phrases and leave the audience with a good impression. Always and always, as a start is important of your presentation, ending is also. Beginning and ending both are very important. So after your conclusion, you need to state the source of information, that from where you have collected all this information. So references are also important. And another important point while mentioning the source of your information, that from where you have taken all this material, you should include books, magazines, articles, or interviews. Please refer them all in your reference, the last slide of your presentation. And if you don't state that from where you have taken, that is considered to be a plagiarism. So it's better that instead of stating the entire website, give some search words. Another important point, if you want to ask some question, you can, and you can allow your audience also to ask question during the conclusion of your presentation. And if required, you can repeat that question also if your audience has not taken it clearly. Then at the end, you have to thank your audience before finishing up your presentation. Now, after discussing all these three important points, next point that we will discuss in this presentation or this session is that what makes a good presentation and why. Primary purpose of your presentation is that you have to give some information. Then you have to pursue the audience to act upon whatever you have discussed. And also, at times your presentation is to create goodwill. And a good presentation should have content that is most important. Then your objectives are connected to that content. Whatever objectives or aims that you have discussed, your content should be matched with that. Now, next important point that you should keep in mind while preparing your presentation, that is that it fits to the audience. आपका audience कोई और है जिनके सामने आप अपनी presentation दे रहे हो और वो उनके लिए वो presentation है ही नहीं. तो आप सबसे पहले अपने audience के बारे में पता करिए कि आपको किन के सामने अपनी presentation देनी है. Objectives बनाइए और उस audience को ध्यान में रखते हुए आपकी presentation को prepare करिए, उसके content को बनाइए. और आपका presentation well organized होना चाहिए, synchronized होना चाहिए, systematic होना चाहिए और एक logical order में होना चाहिए. Then only your presentation will be considered as good presentation. And why good presentation is required? Because आपका good presentation होगा तभी आप अपने audience की attention को grab कर पाएंगे, तभी आप goodwill create कर पाएंगे और तभी जो result आप चाहते हैं वो आप दे पाएंगे. Now the essential points that you have to keep in mind while making your presentation a successful presentation. Number one, you have to define your objectives. Like we have discussed in our previous session about that office meetings, we have to define our agendas. In the same manner, either the flow of ideas or the outline of a presentation and the objectives or aims of the presentation should be clearly defined. Number two, you have to learn or master your subject in which you want to give your presentation. Instead of the upper layered information, you have to be master in your subject. Then you have to build a plan. Think about some storyline, because during your presentation, it's like the storytelling. Then you have to prepare that whole presentation and rehearse your presentation before presenting it finally. So that if any mistakes are there, if some corrections are required, you can do well on time. Then be natural during your presentation instead of very artificially one you are presenting. If you will present your presentation very artificially, then you will not be able to connect with your audience. अगर आप उनसे connect नहीं कर पा रहे, eye contact नहीं बना पा रहे, आप उनको ऐसा नहीं present कर पा रहे कि ये presentation आपने उनके लिए prepare की है, तो आप connect नहीं कर पाएंगे. So it's better be natural while presenting your presentation. And the 3 keys to successful presentation. अभी तक जो हमने बात करी है, अगर हम उन सबको combined करें तो 3 important magic keywords हैं हमारे पास, जिन पर अगर हम काम करेंगे तो हमारी presentation successful. सबसे पहले audience. Number 2 is how well you have prepared that. Means preparation. And number 3, practice. You have prepared your presentation well, if you are aware about your audience, but you are not practiced your presentation, then your presentation will not be a successful one. So practice your presentation also. Then work on these 3 areas. The above one, your presentation will be a picture perfect because you are using bullet forms also. So use bullet forms, as you have seen in my presentation that I have used bullet points. Then 5 storytelling techniques for effective presentation. Because your presentation is your storytelling. So 5 techniques that I'm discussing here. Number 1, that relatability is there. That you have to relate that what you are discussing, and that should be relatable to your audience also. Then attention grabbing. attention grabbing you can do in the very beginning, in the introduction part of your presentation. Then you try to evoke emotions so that everybody will be connected with you while you are presenting your presentation. Persuasive means that you have to connect and you have to force your audience to think about what you are presenting. So then you can build anticipations and your presentation will become a memorable one. So generally businesses have started crafting stories nowadays. You've seen that the advertisements that are there, they generally create a kind of a story. Why they are creating stories? Because they want to engage the audience better. Whenever some pamphlets are there in front of us, whenever some advertisements are there in front of us, we generally connect with that storytelling things. Then try to write a compelling story that can make or break your presentation that is received. If you are able to connect with your audience through that compelling story in which some relatability is there, some attention grabbing element is there, if you are able to evoke emotions in your audience, उनको persuasive कर पा रहे हैं, उनको सोचने पे मजबूर कर पा रहे हैं, तो आपकी presentation अपने आप अच्छी हो जाएगी. उसमें एक कहानी बन जाएगी और उस कहानी का हिस्सा आप अकेले नहीं होंगे, उस कहानी का हिस्सा आपका ऑडियंस भी होगा, आपका लिसनर भी होगा. तो बिगनिंग कैसे क्राफ्ट करें हम? सबसे पहले आपका मैसेज आपको टेलर डाउन करना है कि आप क्या मैसेज देना चाहते हैं अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन से. So, आपका स्पेसिफिक पेन पॉइंट आपको फाइंड आउट करना है कि आपका ऑडियंस आज आपसे क्या चाहता है और क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है उनकी. आप अगर वो पेन पॉइंट समझ पाते हैं तभी आप उसके अकॉर्डिंग अपनी को बना पाएंगे, उनको एक सर्विस दे पाएंगे. And you may also want to lead with one of the key points or takeaway which you want to elaborate in your presentation. So how you start your presentation matters as it sets the tone at the very beginning of your presentation. Second is create a clear narrative. Instead of a confusion, be clear that you want to convey and what are their pain points. So that is your second point, that your narrative should be very clear. Okay? It should be very precise. Third is that when you define the main point or key actions that you want to achieve, means whatever the pain point, whatever the problem, you have to give your story or build your presentation to clear the or to give that clarity of thought on that pain point or that problem. So everything you say should relate back to the main point or the key action. So how does your narrative support the call of action? You hope to achieve that. Next is how you engage the audience with the dynamic animations. So while presenting your presentation, if you use your custom animations while presenting your presentation, maybe the colors, changed colors you can use. Instead of a very boring presentation, you can add few pictures, you can add animation, you can add in between videos. Then your presentation will be an attractive one and a dynamic one. So your message may be airtight, a content may be a very precise one, but your presentation should be an engaging one with the help of those dynamic animations. And you can use visual aids also, as I have mentioned you. Next is that you have to close with a powerful ending. So forget the traditional thank yous and leave them with something more memorable. Suppose drop a shocking or bold statistics so that you can leave your audience to ponder upon that whatever statistics that you have shared. And don't be afraid to hit them with a plot twist at the end of your story. जब आप ट्विस्ट के साथ छोड़ेंगे या ओपन एंडेड अपनी प्रेजेंटेशन को छोड़ेंगे, रीडर रिस्पॉन्स के लिए छोड़ेंगे तो लोग उस पर सोचेंगे और उस पर काम करेंगे और उन्हें लगेगा कि हाँ, प्रेजेंटेशन में हमारा भी कोई पार्ट है और हमें भी कुछ सोचना और इस पे काम करना. The audience needs to feel inspired to take action. So how you leave the audience is just as important as you have started your audience to think over that topic. So thank you everyone. Keep learning, enjoy learning, and you can contact me on the mail that is mentioned here. Hope to see you for the next session, that is lecture 5.3. Thank you everyone.